you had told me that.
Yeah, and he was so sick. And then he just passed out. And in the bathroom, she called 911, and I forget how many days they kept him in the hospital.
Oh, it was like a week.
Close to a week, about 5 days maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to call the town meeting to order. Okay, so in any town meeting, the good news is I don't have to run it. We hire a moderator to do that. Actually, we don't hire, we vote for a moderator. It's an unpaid position. So what we'll do is we're going to open the floor. Yes. You can't hear me. Am I too close or too far? Too close. Is that better? Winona, how's that? How's that? Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, can you, all right, how about now, Winona? Better, better, better. I can swallow it in a minute. All right, so that's, oh, perfect. I'll stay right here until I walk over there. All right, so as we said, we're going to call the town meeting to order. And the nice thing is I don't have to run it. We're going to elect a moderator. So the first thing we do is we open up nominations. If anyone would like to nominate a moderator, please, for tonight's meeting. So Lisa Marzala nominates John Gashon. Is there a second for John Gashon? Tula Belstracci seconds. Do I hear any other nominations for a moderator? Any other moderations? Okay, hearing none. Can I hear a motion to close nominations? Motion to Lou Gendrella closes. Lisa Marzella seconds. Well, nominations are closed. We have one nomination as John Gashon. All those in favor of John Gashon say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now my favorite thing I could get to say at this meeting is, John, you can take over the meeting. Thank you.
Needed more. The FAA.
Good evening. Welcome to the town meeting. Go over the ground rules first for the town meeting.
They have no choice. And David, the real concern here, those roughly 97
All town residents wishing to speak shall raise their hand to be recognized. I will call on speakers one at a time to the microphone. Before you comment, please state your name and address. 2, comments must be on topic, addressed solely to the question on the agenda. Number 3, individuals may have a second opportunity to speak only after everyone wishing to speak once has been recognized. Each speaker will be limited to 2 minutes and cannot yield their time to another. Number 5, questions of protocol. Voters may respectfully ask a point of order on procedure. Number 6, voter eligibility is summarized as follows. All registered voters of North Stonington and all persons owning at least $1,000 of taxable property on the last grand list are eligible to vote on the budget. Section 7-6. Any person not legally qualified who fraudulently votes in any town meeting or votes more than once shall be fined not less than $300 or more than $500, and shall be imprisoned not less than 1 year or more than 2 years, and shall be disenfranchised. Voting by assuming the name or of another shall be guilty of a Class D felony, Section 9-360. Number 7, following discussion, I will call to move the question to vote. 8, a voice vote will first be called indicating yea or nay. Should I determine the voice vote was inconclusive, I will ask for a show of hands. Hearing no objections to these rules, the town meeting, I will now ask the town clerk to read the call.
Warning is hereby given to the electors and those entitled to vote at town meetings of the town of North Stonington that the annual town budget meeting shall be held at the following location on the date and time indicated for the purposes of transacting the business set forth below. Location, North Stonington Education Center, Media Center, 298 Norwich Westerly Road, and via Zoom. Zoom link is given in the call of the meeting. Meeting ID 862-8113-4873, passcode 674239. Date, May 5th, 2025, time 6:30 p.m. Only those attending the meeting in person will be able to vote. The meeting will be available for comment and viewing through Zoom at the link given in the call, but those attending virtually will not be able to vote. All supporting documentation will be available on the town website, www.northstoningtonct.gov. Question number 1. Shall the town of North Stonington approve the estimates and recommendations of the Board of Finance with respect to the annual budget, including general government operating, $6,013,258, redemption of debt, $1,382,949, and capital, $754,091 for fiscal year July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026, in the total amount of $8,150,298.
Ask for a motion and a second to approve the call for discussion. This time, we're going to have First Selectman Bob Carlson come up and present final on the town budget.
Thank you, John. So a little bit different than the town hearing. This will be a little bit shorter presentation. Good news and bad news. I'll start with the bad news is how's everybody's allergies? Rumor has it we won't see the sun till Thursday, and that's all the bad news I have. Good news is the budget. So I'm excited to say that for the 4th consecutive year, the town leadership made up the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Education are presenting a budget to the town that has little to no change in the mill rate. I don't want to steal all Mike Anderson, the chairman of the Board of Finance, is thunder, so I'll let him talk about more on that. But 4 years in a row now, we've come up with almost a flat budget, which is remarkable. If you follow the news and follow what some of our neighboring towns are doing, there's a lot of large increases. But because the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen have been fiscally responsible when it comes to spending, we don't buy a lot of nice-to-haves, we buy need-to-haves. And that shows in the end of the year in the budget and also to give back to the town. So exciting news, I think, for the town again. With that said, Suzanne, do you have my presentation ready? Regular, please. So there's two of those over there. One's for the budget, one's for capital. Okay, May 5th, 2025-26 budget. On the page. All set, so you can print it. Yep. There you go. Okay, so when you look at the budget, the first budget is the summary page. It shows that the government operating budget is a 3.77% increase. Redemption of debt stays the same because that's pretty much uniform as $1,382,949 each year. The Board of Education budget is $16,506,441 with an increase of 4%. And the capital budget, $754,091 with an increase of 18.12% for an overall increase of 4.09. One thing I want to just say about the government operating budget when we get to it is that 3.77, what the number may be if I move some numbers, which we'll talk about in a minute. Turn the page, please. So the good news, our town is in great shape. We're continue to grow. And the nice thing is we're growing the way we want to grow. The people that live here want the town to stay the way it is. The people that move here like it, so they move here. So what we've done is we've had a lot of positive growth in the last 3 years, but it's always where we want it. So the commercial businesses are going down near the highway. The residential businesses are going where houses need to be. And the farms, like the new winery that's going in on Winter Jack Hill, are going where the farms need to be. So overall, the town's not changing it. We're seeing a big increase in our town revenue. In this case, $918,789.10. And that number is at collecting. We have a fantastic tax collector, and she collects at 98.5%. Next. So what are some of the things that contributed to this grand list increase? The grand list itself increased in taxes of $943,661. Short-term investment of $20,000. That's really shortcutting what our treasurer has done. He's actually made over $300,000 in income over the last 3 years by taking the money we have and investing it in CDs and short-term notes. So yes, it's $20,000. It's actually $20,000 over the previous year, which is $100,000. Tuition reimbursement is, I think you may know that we have students going to school here from Preston and Voluntown. Again, that $205,000, that is just the increase from this proposed budget to last year. We're actually getting over $500,000 in revenue from the tuition students coming from Voluntown and Preston. Contractor tipping fees are what we receive back when trash haulers from the town go up and they go up to the Lisbon or Willimantic sites, and that's what gets reimbursed to the town. And the last thing there, CL&P upgrades to the power station. If you're driving down 49 and you're going towards Stop and Shop, and on the right-hand side, you've got that big electric power station. They did a lot of refurbishing to that over the last 2 years, and it increased the taxes on that facility by $124,280. Next page. So I know I said there was no other bad news, but there's a little bit. So reduction in ECS funding, that's education core share funding. This is done by the governor, and these numbers are from the governor's proposed budget. That budget hasn't been approved yet, but this is what we have so far, and it looks like our ECS funding is decreasing by $96,181. There's an additional veterans exemption for those veterans that are 100% disabled, which is it. So that increased exemptions to 52,711, and then changes to the motor vehicle tax, decreased our taxes on motor vehicles by 220,725. Next. Still had that $918,000 increase. So now for the current budget year. So things that we had to do. If you remember last year at this time, when I presented the budget, we basically had no finance department. It was a tough situation. We had long-term people had left, and it wasn't until September of this past September, that we got Suzanne Zero, who is our admin finance officer, and Melissa Peterson, who's our account generalist, to come in. They just did a remarkable job on our audit, which came out wonderfully, and I have to say that our finance department is well staffed once again. Develop a long-term capital plan. I have to give Selectman Mastriani a lot of credit for this. He wanted to make sure that we hold people's feet to the fire when we buy. And we have parameters of if it's over a certain amount of money, different departments can't purchase unless they get multiple quotes. Brett's one of the ones that sign checks. Believe me, he won't sign a check if he doesn't see the quotes attached. And that's happens about once every month, maybe. Not too often. I think our guys are finally getting it. We created a town purchasing policy, which I just said. We developed a long-term capital plan with our DPW, North Stonington Fire Company, and North Stonington Ambulance Association. We, with the town tax collector's help, we organized and ran a property tax sale this past year. And we developed and applied for a steep grant, which we're still waiting to get the results. Next please. So at the hearing, what I did was I went through every line of the budget, which I won't do because you have it in front of you. But I'm going to talk about just a few things that really need the needle move on this budget. First one is on B16 Recreation Commission. That would be on the next page, too. The top, $19,486. That seems like a big increase. That's additional programs, but we also increased our revenue by $12,000 for the Recreation Commission. The next line, fixed charges. That's a savings of $83,575. Melissa Peterson, our accounting journalist, went through every employee and saw what we were paying for health insurance, pension, Social Security, and weighed it against last year, and she found savings of $83,000 plus. Next line is public safety, B26. That's an increase of $86,549. $91,000 of that increase, which is more than that increase, is attributed to the North Stonington Ambulance Association. And Logan Taylor, their chief, is here tonight, and he's going to be talking during question number 3, and he can explain why that number went up so much. B27 Public Works is up $50,050.43, and that's pretty much due to contractual, and also there's LOSA for $26,000, which we get back on the revenue side. B27T Transfer Station, $20,000 increase. That is tipping fees through SCARA, which is getting more expensive. Those are the ones that we pay, and also contractual obligations. Next page. And the biggest mover on this budget is $100,000 on miscellaneous, which is actually, it's the new maintenance program we have with the Board of Education in the school. So in the past, when the schools handled pretty much all their maintenance, and it wasn't always budgeted correctly because you didn't know what you were going to get. And also, the town owns those buildings. And we know what's happened with the building we're in now and some of the other old buildings. If they're not taken care of properly, and I'm not thinking that the school wouldn't, but if they're not taken care of properly, the life of the building doesn't last. We have a new building plus a refurbished building. I'm very confident that my highway department, the town's highway department, can do a really good job taking care of those buildings. More so than maybe the custodians are there to do what they do, small repairs and cleaning, but we have people who can do carpentry work and painting and so on. So when there's something big that happens to those buildings, whether it be HVAC, leaks, cracks, those things, the town said, we want to protect these buildings. We want them to last a long time. So we said to the Board of Ed, tell us how much you spend in maintenance. We went through every line item and we came up with about $103,000 worth of maintenance that if we admitted these are our buildings, what we would take as a town. So we rounded it to 100,000 as a first year to just see where we come, where it goes. Each time there's a major problem with maintenance, we're gonna get a call from them to call for our highway department, who's gonna say to them, there's a problem. They're gonna call me, we're gonna look at the problem, see the best way to fix it, and who's gonna be responsible to fix it. It's again, it's the first year of probably 2 or 3 years of trying to find out how this is all gonna work, but we had to start somewhere. So hence the $100,000, which we put in our budget, and the Board of Ed took it out of their budget. So the good news, as I said, our increase was 3.77%. If I didn't have that 100,000 in there, my increase would have been 2.04% on the town side. Next. So when we do a budget, we have multiple drafts of the budget. The first one we saw was draft number 1, 376,832 increase, which was a 6.50% increase. You can see we went through 6 drafts of this budget with guidance from the Board of Finance, also the Board of Selectmen guiding ourselves, and we brought it down from a 6.50 down to a 3.77. As I mentioned, if I didn't have the school maintenance in there, it would be at 2.04%. Next. The past 3 budgets, this is the 4th year, past 3 budgets, 2025-26, that's this year, 3.77, but the last 3 were 2024 at 4.37% increase, 2023, 4.38% increase, and 2022 at 2.74% increase. Again, without taking that 100,000 on our side of the budget, we'd be lower than any of those years in the past. And next. And we'll do the capital. Yeah. The two, am I saying too close? Okay, if this is any better. So you have this, it says capital on it. I talked about how we developed the capital plan. And it's very easy in the past, we have as a town, when the Board of Finance says, okay, Board of Selectmen, you have to cut 200,000 out of your budget. It's easier to cut 1 truck than it is to go through 30 or 40 or 50 lines and cut 1,500 here and 2,000 there. So we always would cut capital. And then what we end up, we have kicking the can down the road, a bunch of trucks that are fire trucks, ambulances, and town trucks that aren't working correctly. We spend a lot of money in repairs and maintenance. So we thought there's got to be a better way to do this. The Board of Finance has asked us now to come up with a capital plan prior to the budget. And we came up with a capital plan in November and December, and then they decide that once we have that, if it makes sense, they just leave it alone and we do not touch the capital plan once the budget process starts. So who makes up the capital plan? The town's Department of Public Works, the fire company, the ambulance association, and the schools. Next page. Perfect. That's just what I wanted to do. Thank you. Okay, so town public works. So what makes up their capital? Well, trucks, loaders, and excavators are the biggest products they have, biggest pieces of machinery that they have, and they go anywhere from 55,000 to 300,000, and the average life of those are 12 to 15 years. So our capital plan is that we purchase 2 to 3 trucks every 3 to 4 years. We have a complete fleet turnover over 12 years. And in years 13 through 15, we only make emergency purchases. So if a truck we bought in year 1, and now it's year 12, just because there's a piece of paper that says we should buy a truck again, doesn't mean we have to buy one. 13 through 15 is when we look at our fleet, make sure that everything's working fine. And if we have to buy a truck for emergency purposes, it would happen during that years 13 to 15. Year 16, we start the process over again. Next page. The Ambulance Association, we run two ambulances, a small box and a larger box. The small box costs roughly $150,000. We just bought one this past year. And the larger box is $350,000. And there's one that's scheduled to be purchased in about 4 to 5 years. So the average life of an ambulance is 10 to 12 years. Again, the small ambulances we just purchased, it's 1 year old. In year 6, we'll purchase the second ambulance. In years 11 to 12, just like we did in the Department of Public Works, we don't have to purchase one just because the paperwork says we should. We look at the ambulances in years 11 and 12, see how they're working. If we have to replace it, we can, but if not, we can take a capital break over those 2 years and not purchase one. So in year 13, we start looking to start that trend again. So one ambulance every 5 years, last 10 years, so every 5 years we're buying an ambulance if we need one. Next. So this is where the most expensive equipment comes from. This is in the fire company. So there's 6 major fire vehicles, and they cost anywhere from $850,000 to $1.5 million. The average life is 30 years. So what we thought we'd do is, it's expensive to buy those types of equipment. So we put 2 trucks every 10 years. So we divided into 3 10-year, 3 decades, 10-year decades. And we say, okay, in years 1 to 10, we're going to buy 2 trucks. Years 11 to 20, we'll buy 2. And in years 20 to 30, we'll buy 2 more. In year 31, review the oldest trucks we have and see what condition they're in. That gives us a 30-year plan on the fire company. So what do we have right now? Last year, we bought a 2024 loader for $61,688. It's in year 2 of 4, the 4-year lease to buy. The hook lift truck number 17 was $83,020 per year. It's in year 2 of 3. The 10-wheel plow truck number 3, it's $81,070 per year. It's in year 2 of 4. On the ambulance, we had bought a small ambulance last year. It's a $150,000 ambulance. It's $34,500 per year. We're in year 2 of 5. The North Sullivan Fire Company bought a tanker truck about 5 years ago. We pay $69,970 per year. That truck will be paid off, and we're in year 4 of 7. And the last is the new truck we're buying this year, which is the rescue truck R1 truck. It's the most expensive truck we can buy. It's a 10-year lease to purchase at $155,655 per year for 10 years. We were not buying. If you see that we're in year 4 of 7 on the tanker truck, which means we can't buy another fire truck until year 7. So there's 2 years in every decade. That's the next time we can buy one. And the top where it says DPW, we can't buy a new truck until year 4, year 3, and year 4. So we try to turn over that fleet. Next. And that's basically what we came up with, a capital plan. It makes sense. We will never be kicking the can down the road. This plan lasts to be here a lot longer than I'm going to be here. But it makes sense, and it's something that we hope that this administration can leave behind. So as long as we keep following it, the town should never be in trouble. And also, by using this type of a capital plan, instead of having peaks and valleys where we may spend $1.5 million 1 year in capital and $300,000 the next year, we're basically spending about 3% of our budget, or $750,000, on a regular basis, give or take $40,000 to $50,000 each year. So it's more of a steady line versus the peaks and valleys. So we can know what to expect each year when we do the budget. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
At this time, I'd open the floor for any questions of the selectmen on their budget or capital plan. Seeing no questions, I've asked the town clerk to read question 2.
Question number 2. Shall the town of North Stonington approve the estimates and recommendations of the Board of Finance with respect to the annual Board of Education budget for fiscal year July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026 in the amount of $16,543,900 $56,441.
At this time, I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve the call for discussion. Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you.
So
at
was
this point.
Lisa first, Judy
Lisa,
made second.
thank you.
My presentation. Perfect, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie Mastriani. I'm the chair of the North Stonington Board of Education. The slide, thanks. So copies of the narrative about our budget are up there if you'd like them. Additionally, our actual budget document is in the back of the forms that are up there as well. So I'm going to reference those throughout my presentation. I wanted to start by talking about some of the achievements at our elementary school, middle school, and high school. Most notably, up here, you see that our middle school is ranked 14th in the state of Connecticut. Our school is just so small that this is a huge deal for us. When you look at our elementary school scores, you see that we're comparing those scores with not only schools that look like us, but also schools that are close by that we're often compared with. And so that group is Stonington, East Lyme, Montville, Groton, Preston, Brooklyn, Ledyard, Killingly, Griswold, Lisbon, and Norwich. And as you can see from our elementary school test scores, we're doing a fantastic job. Also, our high scores at Wheeler, when you look at our SAT and our science scores, they're very high. In fiscal year 25, we did a few things differently, and I just want to briefly touch on some of those. We hired a full-time athletic director, which was a big change for us. That AD position allowed for the inclusion of sixth grade students on middle school sports teams. This allowed us to run every middle school sports team this year. She also revitalized our Sports Boosters program, which means that we have more people raising money and pushing that money back out into our sports programs. Additionally, she has written a number of grants, again, bringing money in that could be pushed back out to our sports programs. Our Director of Instruction and Learning has positively impacted our district through organizing professional development, supporting instructional improvement, teaching instructional technology, aligning curriculum and assessment practices, and training new teachers. After doing a survey into our parent community about before and after school care needs, we created something called Cub Club. Cub Club is self-sustaining and flexible before and after school program. Each month, parents can choose which sessions they'd like their children to participate in and pay for those sessions. In March of this year, 62 kids participated in Cub Club. We also hired a board-certified behavior analyst and also some registered behavioral technicians. This offers proactive behavioral support for students and has resulted in a reduction in crisis intervention. Up here on the screen, you can see some of the highlights from our North Stonington Elementary School. We have consistently outperformed our district reference group and neighboring schools in state assessments, excelling in math and science across all grade levels, as well as in most grade levels for English language arts. At Wheeler, we're using the middle school model that includes interdisciplinary activities promoting collaboration and student-led conferences. At the high school, We continue to be focused on opportunities that evolve to prepare students for life after high school and reinforce our commitment to keeping students in North Stonington instead of seeking options outside of the district. We also concentrate on meeting the needs of each student, regardless of what their future holds for them. We continue to be very proud of our highly successful School of Choice program, which includes tuitioning children from Preston and Voluntown. And this year we're piloting a dual enrollment program with New England Tech, which is allowing a student to attend New England Tech at the same time that he's attending his senior year at Wheeler, and that's paid for through a grant. At the end of his senior year in June, he'll be halfway through his associate's degree as well as a Wheeler graduate, and then he'll continue that program next year, and he'll be done with his associates at that time. Our Special Services Department is committed to making student-centered decisions that foster meaningful outcomes. By enhancing transition activities, expanding life skill instruction, and strengthening in-district supports, the department continues to create an inclusive, engaging, and well-rounded learning experience for all students. By embedding these critical areas into the curriculum, students will gain confidence and independence as they transition beyond high school. Technology has changed the way teachers are teaching and the way students are learning, and so it seemed important to talk about how technology is being used in our classrooms in North Stonington. This slide talks to you a little bit about how we're using technology in the elementary school, and I just want to highlight that in grades K through 4, 15 minutes per day is the amount of time that students are using independent devices, and 15 minutes per day is technology involved in their instruction. In 5th and 6th grade, 30 minutes per day are spent on independent devices, and 30 minutes a day is spent in with teachers providing instruction. This is a slide on what's happening in technology at Wheeler. In an 88-minute block, 15 to 20 minutes of independent device use and 30 minutes of tech-supported instruction. There's a handout in the front of the room as well with more details on technology and its uses in the district. All of the handouts that I'm referring to can also be found on our website. This is our enrollment data for last year and this year. In 25-26, we're projecting 26 students will be attending a technical high school. 4 students will attend a VOAG high school, and 9 will attend magnet schools. In addition, we're projected to add 9 tuitioning in students to the freshman class. This is a highlight of some of our budget drivers right now. If you look on your budget sheet, the technology piece starts on line 224. You'll see there's a slight increase in new equipment, as well as the software line has a slight increase. $80,000 has been added into the tech consortium line. That's for tech support in the form of an IT director. That used to be under central office salaries. We've now just moved where it is. We're going to talk a little bit more specifically about technology in the budget a bit later. The tuition reduction is as a result of a special education outplacements that are coming back into districts. Our salaries are increased based on year 3 of our 3-year teacher contract. Benefits are up 9% this year. Our transportation has increased because this is next year will be year 1 of a new contract that we negotiated this year. This presentation is slightly different than what I have in front of me, but I think you can figure it out. So our overall budget request is $617,519. That equates to a 4% increase. In looking at our facilities line items, you'll see that supplies are up $26,000, 26.5, from last year. I think it's important to say that while you're seeing the fiscal year 2025 budget, that's not what we spent. So our projected amount is actually much closer to the $80,000 that we're budgeting for this year. In fact, we're projected to spend about $83,500 this current year. So that's why we adjusted the budget for next year. The increase in uniform allowance is largely contractual. And then you're going to see a decrease in general building services. Again, what you see on the budget is not what our actual will be, but we did back out that money that the town has now included in their budget. And we're going to leave $75,000 in our general building services line for next year. In terms of technology staffing, you heard me reference the $80,000 that we added into the tech consortium line. That's because this year we had a resignation from our IT director. Our IT director, including benefits, was costing the district $148,000, a little more than that. And when our superintendent and his technology team talked about what we were doing, it seemed to make more sense to outsource this rather than hiring a new IT director. So we're using Learn, which is a consortium that we're a part of. And we have an IT director that we can access approximately 2 days a week. It's not the same person, so we can choose whatever the area of expertise that we need to come in and work with us. We also have the opportunity now to get additional IT tech support from Learn 2 days a week, and the cost of those things together is $80,000. In terms of our hardware, our superintendent put together a team that looked at a sustainable technology plan. I liken this to a very small, simplistic version of what Bob was talking to you about with a capital plan. We wanted a plan that would keep our budget line item relatively stable and would allow for us every year to be investing in technology so that we didn't come into a situation where we needed to buy a ton of technology or we had all outdated equipment. And so I think that we've put together a workable and sustainable plan for that. So we have realized at this point that technology is a really important part of education. We have to fund it. So our teacher laptop replacement is really high on our list. The district is using 46 teacher laptops that are from 2016 or older. The budget contains 14 new laptops, which is what we believe is a sustainable level that will continue to replace each year. We'll begin to phase out desktops and only have teachers using laptops. We have a one-to-one Chromebook program for grades 9 through 12. This started right before COVID. So our budget contains the Chromebooks to provide the incoming 9th graders their Chromebooks. It also contains 30 new Chromebooks to replace the old computers at the elementary school. We hope to extend our one-to-one Chromebook program to students in grades 5 through 8. Those students currently have Chromebooks because when COVID started, we had grant money and we were able to get Chromebooks into the hands of all of our students. Those are aging out. And so if we're going to continue, we're going to need to buy the incoming 5th graders Chromebooks. The Board of Ed is still taking some time to look about how we want to do that long term, but we're going to purchase the 5th graders Chromebooks with funds from our non-lapsing account rather than our operating budget. We also are purchasing interactive whiteboards. These are things that are replacing those old projectors that you see in classrooms. They make lessons more engaging and they improve instruction. 5 smart boards are in our budget to be purchased this year. In order for our sustainable technology plan to be viable, we need to do catch up because we have a lot of outdated equipment. The catch up is going to be done with our non-lapsing account, which will allow our budget to have appropriately funded technology line while making purchases to catch up without increasing the bottom line of the budget. So our non-lapsing account this year will be used for 32 additional teacher laptops and 5 additional smart boards. This should put us on a replacement schedule consistent with the sustainable technology plan. We're also experiencing some IT infrastructure failures. We need to do some major upgrades, and this budget is going to allow us to continue to replace our aging switches, battery backups, firewall access points, and servers all over a 5-year period. This year, we have $20,200 in the budget, but we're also going to spend that same amount out of the non-lapsing account to replace some additional infrastructure in the form of failing switches. Again, this is going to allow us to catch up, handle the immediate issues that we need to address this year while getting us on a replacement schedule that's sustainable and doesn't cause a hole in our budget for next year. This is our projected revenue to the town. Bob talked briefly about our education cost sharing. It does look like it's going to be almost $100,000 less than the current year. It's just over 2.5 million. And then you see our school of choice tuition. It's at $510,000 this year. That's something that we're really proud of at Wheeler. The first year of this program was in 2021, 2022. There were 4 students. And now next year we'll have 34 students as a part of this program. I think it's also important to note that this program hasn't caused us to increase our expenses in the form of teachers. We haven't had to hire any new staff to bring these kids to our school. They're just able to pay tuition from these towns to experience what our kids are experiencing. And having them has really, obviously it benefits the town financially, but it also benefits our school community. They've been a wonderful addition. I talked about using our non-lapsing account for some things that we're not putting in the budget. And here's what we anticipate funding. Our goal is that we want to use non-lapsing account for one-time expenses. And we do that so that we're not increasing the bottom line of the budget with things other than operating expenses. This year, using our non-lapsing account is not going to create a hole in our budget for next year. Right now, our unencumbered non-lapsing account balance is about $195,000, and we anticipate of that spending $155,000 on what you see here. So you'll note the IT infrastructure, teacher laptops, whiteboards, and Chromebooks that I spoke about. In addition, we're going to buy 20 new security cameras and replace 10. And then we are negotiating our teacher's contract in July. And that is our biggest contract and generally comes with significant legal fees. Instead of putting that in our budget this year because we won't need it next year, we decided to put it in the non-lapsing account and pay for it there. This is a look back at our school budgets from 2016 to 2017. So you'll see that this year in 25-26, we're looking at a 4% increase, and our 10-year average is 2.34% a year. And then this slide is just a comparison for you in regards to what other towns in our area did last year and are moving towards this year. In closing, we're asking for 4%. It's necessary to cover the rising costs while maintaining the high standard of education that's expected by our local community and tuition paying students. In doing this budget, we did have to remove 1.1 FTE teacher positions and regular education summer school in order to get down to a 4% increase. The budget process removed non-essential expenses, reflecting a focus on efficiency and fiscal responsibility, with the goal of continuously improving the quality of our school system and contributing to the community's success. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open the floor for just any questions to the Board of Education about their budget. Seeing none at this time, I would invite Chairman of the Board of Finance, Mike Anderson, to speak on the budget as a whole.
Thank you, John. Now, this isn't something that I handed out. It's mainly I want to just kind of talk about the budget process and, you know, the things that we have to consider as the Board of Finance, as the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education bring forth their budgets. This is, I think, my 8th budget. And I'm pretty proud of the work that everyone put in again this year to get us to where we are. You know, it's, if you look at, and I can't stress this enough, if you look at the towns around us and what they're dealing with, I think I'm very pleased, and I'm hoping that the town is going to be pleased with what we're going to be able to do with the budget for next year. Next slide. You know, mainly, this is year after year. We have present day economy concerns. Now we have tariffs to worry about. Inflationary pressures are luckily just a little bit less, but there's still obviously concerns. As Bob alluded to, it's the capital needs of the town that we want to fully fund, and with foresight. That's why we've really pushed the Board of Selectmen and the town departments to come up with a comprehensive capital plan, not only for this year, last year, the next 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years out. And we have increased the capital expenditures to a point where we're fully funding those items, and we're not using capital cuts to balance budgets like we did in the past. Obviously, we need to support the operational needs of our schools and town government. And also, very important to the Board of Finance and helpful, obviously, and you'll see in a minute, like last year, we're managing our undesignated funds within our policy limits. And just so we're, you know, Chairman Mastriani was just talking about their non-lapsing account. The Board of Education has a statutory right to keep up to 2% of their money that they would normally give back to the town, to put in their own kind of undesignated fund to be used at their discretion for educational needs. So just wanted to put that out there so you guys understand what the non-lapsing account is for the Board of Education. That's statutory, and that's completely within their rights and legal obligation to do for the district. We'll go next. It's just some grand list and revenue changes. Bob had some information on his slides. We did have an increase in real estate. It's not huge, but it's in the right direction. People want to live here. They want to build here. Personal property was a huge increase, and a lot of it was, again, that Eversource upgrading their power stations. And we also had other entities that were depreciating their equipment in a manner that was very beneficial for them, but not so for us for tax purposes. And we in other towns changed that, and we get more revenue for their personal property, which helps us. Motor vehicle taxes, the state changed the way we tax vehicles. Obviously, after COVID, we had a huge increase in value of vehicles, and people were complaining about their motor vehicle taxes, and the state changed it. It was going to be a huge hit, so they changed it again, but we do have a reduction of like almost 0.990% for taxes in the motor vehicles. So we have revenue of $18,782,550 using our 98.5 tax collection rate. I just want to point out again, thanks to our treasurer, Sean Murphy, he has put in our money to use, and we have an additional $20,000 more to be added in revenues for this year. We have a total of 100 that's going to our money working for us, which I think is fantastic. We have available, we did use $96,000 and $96,668,000 last year from the undesignated fund to balance the budget, and we have to add that into what we had for total means of financing. So the real extra money that we have from last year is $822,726. Next slide. Budget process, this is, just information. We start off in the fall with the capital issues, making sure that the Board of Selectmen are refining their capital. That's the first thing they present to us. When that's a go, then we don't touch it. And then we hear from all the various boards collectively with the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance sit in on all those, and then we get their first draft, and we get the Board of Education draft, and you saw that they start here and they really refine that on their own and with our guidance, and we eventually said, hey, you guys can't have more than a 4% increase, and they came in, the Board of Education came in at 4%, and Board of Selectmen were able to come in at 3.77%. So that doesn't go out with a lot of hard work. Board of Education is, they're losing 1.1 full-time equivalents of a teacher. We've never really had cuts to teachers before. They had to do that this year, and I think it's important to note that everyone did some really hard work to get to where we are today. Next. This is just, again, where they are. We basically have 951,405 increase over last year. And you take that with the additional revenue, and we're in a shortfall of 128,679. Next. So this is a spreadsheet that we've been using for several years, and it's a great tool because you see you have net grand list up on the top left. You have the mill rate of 28.88, which in percentages is 0.02888. And with all the revenue coming in at 98% tax rate, the taxes themselves are 18 million and change. All the other methods of financing give us to 24,078,060. Take all the on the expenditure side, and we see at 28.88 mils we have a deficit of 128,679. It's 78.79. It's just how the program works. Next. So highlights are, again, our grand list has continued to expand due to our investment in our town, because people are building new homes, people want to live here. Businesses are renovating, and the future looks bright with businesses starting to build where, as Bob said, in the right areas. And we made 0 cuts to the capital budget again. And we budgeted an additional 115,655 for this budget. That was for generator upgrades, repairs to our income generating town-owned property, and upgrades to our volunteer fire company equipment and rescue truck. And Board of Education budget went up 4%, mainly again due to contractual obligations. There's nothing we can do about that. They did make significant cuts to get to this level, but they believe that our kids will be well served with this budget. What are we going to do about the $128,679 deficit? It's actually positive news when you consider it, what's going on in the rest of the towns around us. Next slide, please. I know this might be a little bit hard to read, but this is our undesignated fund. And I think I'm going to. So our policy is you take the expenditures and you divide what's in the undesignated fund by the total expenditures for the year. And we have a policy, the Board of Finance has a policy that division cannot come out with a level that's less than 8.5%. Meaning if you look at this present year that we're in, with the expenditures that we have for the budget of 24-25 that we're in right now, at 8.5%, we could be at 1,976,703.39. The maximum level of 17%, that's the ceiling. As you understand, we don't want to we don't want to hold more money of your money than is prudent. We believe as a board that 17% is the max level that we want to have. And that if we did that, it would be 3,953,406.78. The actual budget we have in there, the 4,355,000 and change, is 18.73% of this year's expenditures. So that says to us as a board, and we have the policy that says within this year, we have to do something to reduce it down to that 17% ceiling. We did this last year. We were going to projected to be above the level of 17% last year, and we took that 96,668 and we filled the budget gap. We knew that there was going to be even more money to be given that we're going to be above the 17%. So we reduced the mill rate last year by 0.11. Now, we're looking at next year's budget. So what I asked myself to do and Suzanne to do is let's look at what would the levels be at the new expenditures, because if the expenses go up, we got to look at what's 17% on that, what's 8.5% on that. So that lower number, we could have a minimum of 2 million and change and a maximum of 4.115 in the undesignated fund, looking at expenditures. The real number, based upon that 4,335,000 number where we're at right now, is 17.99%. And I do have to move. So this is the number I'm talking about right here. This bottom line number is 4,355,698.07. But that includes if the question 3 and question 4 we have tonight, which is the deobligation of capital funds, would add 126,474.77 to our undesignated fund. And you're going to see the North Stonington Ambulance Association, we approved an appropriation of 76,000 to allow them to make payroll this year, given myriad factors, but that has to be approved by the town. So all those in and out, that gives us that 435. And if we do vote those yes tonight, we have a level of 17.99%. And if we look at the notes at the bottom, there's a lot of good things that could still happen. We've taken money out for this steep grant of 426,000. Once that project goes forward, there's 340 that's coming back from the state. There's also a trail grant that we've taken out 58,000 from the undesignated fund. All of that goes back when that project's done. So we're very, very healthy with regard to our undesignated fund. So I did an additional slide where what's available now if we did vote to deobligate the capital funds and we did vote to give North Stonington Ambulance Association the 76,000 to get us to the 4,355,000. At 17.99% equates to 240,552.44 in funds available for mill rate stability. Now, these are all, I have to give you a caveat, these are all items that we're looking at. We haven't made any decisions. This is all for informational purposes only. Everyone shake your head yes. You understand what I'm saying? So we have options. Next slide, please. We could, option 1, we could go back and raise the mill rate to 29.09. So that would give us a higher collection of taxes and we would have no deficit. We'd actually put 4,964 back into the undesignated fund. Everyone see how that works? You plug in that number in the top left, the mill rate, and that would change the bottom line variance. Next. Or we could take 128,679 from the undesignated fund. And you can see in the revenue sign about 7 or 8 lines down, it says to or from the undesignated fund, we add the 128,679 and we have a balanced budget. Next. So we have options, and that would still leave more money for the Board of Finance to decide in the next year. As we said, we had 240. If we use 128, we might still pay down debt to get to the 17%. We have options to use that money to give back to the taxpayer to get to our 17%. We believe this is a solid budget. We've passed, this is what, 3 budgets in a row that we passed in the first go around. We want to make it 4. And again, particularly when compared to what's going on with surrounding towns and the increases that they're having, you know, if we use the undesignated fund as we could, there would be no mill rate increase. We can, again, continue to meet our obligations with capital, allows appropriate school funding necessary to keep our kids safe, healthy, and able to learn. We want to remain schools of distinction. And we're managing our undesignated fund per our policy in a fiscally responsible manner to balance our budget and provide tax stability to our citizens. So I'll take questions if anyone has any. Mr. Mullane from Miller Road.
First, I want to commend the administration for making a very healthy financial picture. I'm going to ask you a favor. So that we can see the big picture, would you make a debt schedule of what we owe on a per annum basis of each one of the items that we owe going forward? I think that gives everybody an idea as to when we end the school budgets and the big ones. And I want to commend y'all. I don't like, I was on the Board of Finance 7 years, a selectman for 6 years, a first selectman for 28. Don't reduce the budget because you just pay for it next year.
Thank you, Nick. Brian? See if that one will turn on, Brian. Yep, click the button right there. Yep, there you go.
John?
Yep.
Yeah, it is. All right, with the undesignated fund, I know we got an overage. I heard you just talk about it, but you talk like a lawyer to me. Is it, we want to use the undesignated fund? Let's forget about the overage right now. It's sitting there. So the undesignated that you use will be coming off the 17% side, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you'll decide later
We will,
on the overage.
correct. If these budgets, if these budgets pass,
Mhm.
then we have to set a mill rate at the next meeting. And that mill rate will reflect our decision on what the, what number is going to come off of that undesignated fund, what's going to be used
From the 17%.
from the, whatever is above 17%.
Oh. I'd like to see the 17%, I think I said it before, go toward debt. 'Cause anytime I ever have an overage in my budget, which is very little time, it usually goes to pay a debt. And I think that's the way I would like to see any overage of taxes that I've paid through the years.
And I would encourage anyone, because right now we have, there's a policy, no less than 8.5, no more than 17%. I would say at this point, with regard to this budget, we would, at this time, look at what is above 17% to 17%, or whether or not we're gonna even go down to 17% right now, because we have a year to determine what to do with that budget. If you would like during those meetings to come in and say, we think you should pay down debt to go to 16% or 15% or 14%, you're more than welcome to come as a taxpayer and encourage the Board of Finance to do that. Okay?
Okay.
I think that's what you're
I-
getting at. You said you want
Yeah.
less money to be kept. That's part of the taxpayers' money. And
Well, I want
And-
the overage. We've already overpaid. In fact, I feel like I'm paying a lot more than 17% because the state says the school can save from 1% to 2%.
one has nothing to do with the other, Brian. That's the
Well,
thing.
there's still taxes. It comes out of a taxpayer's pocket. That's what has to do with it, at least in my mind.
Mhm.
Maybe everybody else is different, but I'm not. I watch every penny I got if I can.
The state has nothing to do with our undesignated fund policy. That's a Board of Finance policy.
Right.
And, like I said, we will be using that as a board to try to create mill rate stability for our taxpayers. And then if there are still funds available that are at least above the 17%, we have as a policy, we have to do something about that money. If you want us to go beyond that, please come to the meetings and make your voice known. And anybody else, I would encourage them to do the same.
So I've seen both undesignated. I've seen the schools and I've seen ours. There's a lot of money. And I just feel that it encourages the budgets to be put that much more because, we don't have to give it back to the town. The Board of Education don't have to give it back to the town. If we make our budget 2% higher, and that's 2% we save at the end of the year.
Well, I don't think it works that way. I think
Well, I think it could be. I mean, they had what, like $198,000 in there.
I think for the benefit, I'm not gonna I don't wanna argue with you,
No, I'm
but
just bringing out a point.
it's a statutory allowance that the legislature allows Board of Education to do, so they're not buying things in a flash sale at the end of the year. They are allowed to keep the money there to purchase items throughout the year when it makes sense and not when it doesn't make sense. But the 17% that we have, not only, you gotta think of the good things that it does. It creates a strong fiscal profile when we go out to borrow in the debt market. The fact that it's like having a savings account. When you show that you're able to save and do well, you have less risk and you get better rates. And our auditors actually said our 17% might be low. So
I heard that. Okay. Oh, by the way, I was Brian Rathman, 263 Grindstone Hill.
for the record, you got 5 minutes.
At this point on the floor, is there any more questions for Chairman Anderson?
John Olson, Wyosset Road. A follow-up on the discussion you just had with Brian. So if I understand you correctly, after the budget is passed, then the mill rate is going to be, you're going to set the mill
Make sure
rate.
you're talking to mixed speech.
Sorry.
People on mic and hear.
After the budget is passed, then the mill rate's going to be set. And then at some point in this future year, you're going to discuss what to do with the undesignated fund excess and the potential to lower it below 17% if you choose to use it for some purpose.
I would say the overage is going to be a discussion, when the budget passes, whether or not it uses to keep the mill rate where it is. That doesn't deplete it all the way down to the 17%.
Right.
What I'm saying, if there's additional money that we need as a policy to reduce it down to 17%, that is going to be a discussion that we're going to be having after the new fiscal year starts.
immediately after or?
Probably in this, I would say in the summer to
Sometime this summer.
early fall,
Okay.
when we have, that's, outside of budget season, we have time to start really looking at those items.
Right. And then also so you've already got the 126,000 plus for the decapitalization of if it passes this evening,
Right.
in the budget.
That's in the 17.99%.
Right, it would bring it to that point.
Correct.
And then there's also the potential of the 300 and almost 41,000 and the additional 58,000 that once that steep grant and the other trail grant is spent, that also would be replenished.
It is.
So then if we, based on this paperwork, bring it down to a 17.99, this would again then put us in excess into the coming year, correct?
Yeah, if those projects go forward, yes.
Okay. All right.
We
and
just
all-
received the steep grant reimbursement from the state this year from a project in 2023.
Okay.
So, yes,
Yeah,
it's all positive.
So all of this will come up in the summer discussions.
I don't know if, whatever's in there after these budgets either are voted for or not. If they don't, then we have to go back to the drawing board and we can't sit here and set a mill rate for the townspeople.
Mhm.
We can't until the budgets are voted for.
Right.
I'm saying there are options,
No,
and there
I-
are good options.
I understand that. I'm just trying to get a time frame for when.
I
this
would
will
say
be
that discussion will be had during the summertime meetings and or possibly September, early October.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the chairman at this time?
It's been a very enjoyable evening up to now, and I'm going to ruin it. There's one big gorilla in the game, and that's the state of Connecticut. We're broke. Bad. I mean, if you track what's going on in Hartford, it's not good news. And how are they going to get out of this? They're going to cut the aid to towns. Okay? And they've already done it a little bit this year. So, we're comfortable and we should stay that way. I think the presentation tonight look forward to be safe. And it's better be that way than to depend on Connecticut is going to continue the same level they're at now. And they can't afford to do that. Their debt is what now? 85, 90 billion dollars? Okay, and it's been growing every year. And they can't do what they want to do because they've just taxed and spent. They get an extra nickel, they spend a dime.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mike. At this time, I'd like to ask the town clerk to read question 3, please.
Question number 3. Shall the town approve an additional appropriation of funds from the undesignated fund in the amount of $76,000 to cover payroll for the North Stonington Ambulance Association?
This time I ask for a motion and a second to approve the call for discussion. Got a motion by Lou and a second by Sarah. At this time, I'd like to invite Logan Taylor up to give his presentation.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Logan Taylor. I'm the chief of North Stonington Ambulance. I've been here about 4 years and we've made great progress with our organization. At this time, last year, we answered 950 calls for the town of North Stonington. We currently have 5 full-timers on staff and 12 per diem employees. We're staffed 24 hours a day with paid staff 365 days a year, and we have not missed a single first due call in the last 3 years. Unfortunately, we had some outstanding insurance payments, as in we sent bills out and we did not receive those funds back in. As of right now, the first selectman or the selectman board had a concern about us sending town residents to collections or putting lien on individuals' homes or cars, which has been done in the past. I'm a strong believer that we do not do that to our townspeople and our community members, because you guys help fund our organization and make sure that we are here to serve the community. So as of right now, we have discharged $96,882 or $80.32. And that was just of town residents' outstanding bills since 2022. And we've sent $220,068.26 to collections of out of town or non-residents for the town of North Stonington. With that being one of the factors in this equation, in December, I had to meet with Bob and I had to give my employees a $1 raise because we lost 2 full-timers. They had not had a raise in 18 months. My per diem employees or my per diem EMTs starting make $20 flat, and my full-timers make $22 flat without medical insurance, and they make $22 with medical insurance. So that was another contributing factor of why we're a little short, as well as the insurance reimbursement that's the income that we help support longevity of the organization throughout the year. As of right now, in our general fund, like our main account that we operate off of, there was $14,000 in it this morning, and there was $60,000 in our billing account. So the request of the $76,000 was to help us supplement our payroll until we can get to the next fiscal year. We are requesting $76,000, but that does not mean that we are going to use that $76,000. The way that I came up with that number is our average payroll is anywhere between $18,000 and $20,000 every 2 weeks. We're paid bi-weekly. There's a lot of things that factor into that. When I took this on, we were at 68% failure rate. We had an ambulance staffed 4 days or 4 shifts a week, basically. We are, like I said, we are fully staffed now. So with that being said, when we have a call out, we have to pay overtime. If I'm not able to get an EMT to come in, I have to order my full-timer in. And most of my full-timers are already on the brink of overtime or already on overtime. So how can I pull them away from their family? They're not scheduled. I'm calling them within 24 hours, and we have to pay them double time at that point because we're taking them away from their families and we're sticking them in this building mostly on the weekends, and not a lot goes on in North Stonington on the weekends, meaning like events and things for them to go do. So we found it would be more beneficial for us and more advertising for our full timers to give them something to look forward to if we had to order them in. So that's the reason why there's a big fluctuation with the payroll between 16 or 18 and 20,000. So anyways, I times that towards how many payroll periods we have left to the fiscal year, and that's what it came up to. I want to emphasize that this money, if it is allocated to us, will only be used on payroll and help supplement the payroll. Anything that is not used will be returned to the town as July 1, as our fiscal year will start, and we'll have the proper support moving forward. Does anybody have any questions?
Sam Memmer, 85 Rocky Hollow Road, North Stonington. I have a question about the old ambulance building. Does that still belong to the ambulance association?
It does.
Okay.
We are working on getting the deed. I do believe the paperwork was filed and should have been submitted to get the new deed.
Is acquisition of the deed for the purpose of selling that property?
I do believe so.
Okay. Would
That
those
would be-
funds be used to offset some of these costs that we're discussing tonight?
So those funds, whenever that building is, so I'm not the president, so I only operate the organization from the emergency side of it. I do believe that that building will be sold, and we will be earmarking that for operations failure, like if we have an issue in the future with town funding, then we'll take the money out of there to supplement our operations fund.
Okay. How long has that building been vacant?
I do believe they moved into the new emergency service building 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any reason it wouldn't be sold?
Huh?
Is there any reason it wouldn't be sold?
I don't believe so. The only thing that restricted us from selling the building was that it was only deeded for emergency services use or emergency services training.
Okay.
So there was as the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, they've heard me say this 1,000 times. There is no money in our budget to hire an attorney. So we're using pro bono attorneys. So that's why it's taken so long for us to get the deed and to get everything switched over.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Does anybody else have any other questions? Thank you.
Seeing no further questions at this time, I would ask for a motion to move this question to a vote. Nick made the motion, Sarah the second. At this time, I'd like to see a show of hands or say yay for yes at this time. Nay? Any nays? One. The yeas have it. At this time, I would like the town clerk to please read question 4.
Question number 4, shall the town deobligate the following funds from the capital projects funds? 3160 sewer study, $11,898.14. 3315 plan of conservation and development, $3,478.60. 3320 NSVFC rescue truck refurbish, $100,055.84. 3321 NSVFC service truck, $480.80. 3534 dump truck refurbish, $3,028.29. 3536 tractor and mower, $6,500. 3538 Mack truck refurbish, $1,033.10, for a total deobligation of $126,474.77.
At this time, I would invite First Selectman Bob Carlson to come up for presentation.
Thank you. So in your packet, you have this, should be the last sheet you took from up there. It's in the tonight's call packet. It's the last page. And what I did is I tried to describe for you what the obligation was for and why we're doing it. So every once in a while, we look at the capital and we have to look at projects that are done. Once a project's done, if there's money left over, it just sits there. And something sits there and sits there and sits there until the Board of Selectmen decide what to do with it. So we look at these things that were no longer needed. Like I said, the sewer study, the plan of conservation development is finished. The rescue truck refurbish, well, we're not refurbishing because we're buying a new one. The service truck was bought last year. Dump truck refurbishment is over. We did that. Tractor and mower, we bought that. That was leftover money. And then the Mack truck refurbishment, again, leftover money of $1,033.10. So we can't take that money and send everybody a check for $33.20 or whatever the number would be. So we deobligate it, it goes into the undesignated fund. And you heard from a chairman of the Board of Finance the things we can do with the undesignated fund, like keep the mill rate flat or pay off debt, as in Mr. Rothman and Mr. Olson would like to do, pay off debt. So it's easier for us to deobligate it, put it into the capital fund, and choose the undesignated fund, and let the Board of Finance figure out the best ways to use it. So that's what we've done. And again, this page is just to kind of, rather than just say we're doing it, give you an explanation of why we're doing it. And that's it. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Seeing no questions at this time, I would ask for a motion to move this question to a vote. Got a motion by Will Mason, a second by Dan Smith. By the show of yay or nay, Yay for yes. How many in favor? Any nays? Motion passes. At this time, I would entertain a motion to accept the suggesting voting hours for May 19th from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Can I get a motion for that? Judy Main, seconded by Will Mason. Yeas? Any nays? Motion passes. State absentee ballots will be available from the town clerk for the referendum. At this time, I would ask the town clerk to read the referendum notice.
Notice of referendum. Resolve the Board of Selectmen pursuant to its authority under Connecticut General Statutes, Section 7-7, hereby removes questions 1 and 2 to be considered at the May 5th, 2025 annual town meeting cited in the prior resolution to a referendum to be held on Monday, May 19th, 2025. The hours for voting at said referendum shall be established by vote at the May 5th, 2025 town meeting. Said hours are recommended by the Board of Selectmen to be 8 o'clock a.m. to 8 o'clock p.m.
At this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. There's a motion on the floor to accept the hours from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. by Lisa Mazzella. Seconded by Dan Smith. At this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Make a motion. There's a motion on the floor to vote for the suggested voting hours for 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Yeas? Nays? Yeas have it. Would entertain a motion to adjourn. Dan Smith made the motion, seconded by Lisa Mazzella. Ayes have it.